Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. It's all about sharing and expanding our horizons and delving into unknown spaces. I'm PD Rave. Here with me is my triumvirate, my team, my squad, my crew.
Power trio.
Yes, the power trio. We've got David.
Buenos tacos, muchachos. Now, Petey, I want you to listen to me for a second. This is not a bit, okay? We're shooting, brother. And I don't want you to just and move on to Drew. Just hear me out.
Yes.
I really think you should turn off the comments for this episode.
Yes. Yes. We will be doing that likely. Of course, next to him we have Drew.
I don't
want to incur the. We're gonna incur the unless we incur the wrath of the Swifties, or their.
I don't even
attention.
like saying their name live on the internet.
It's like, as long as you don't say it 3 times, we should be fine. But yeah, we're talking about an album. We're talking about a very prominent album, a very popular album, but it's one that might be a blind spot to a lot of people. Not everyone, but quite a few people. Drew, what are we talking about? What have we got? What's going on?
Well, as we maybe alluded to a little bit, we're going with possibly one of the most popular artists right now, and one of the most popular artists in years. A tour that billions of dollars and caused earthquakes. But female from West Reading, PA, not super far from me. But Taylor Swift's album Midnights.
Let's. This is a loaded. You've put us in the crossfire.
Yeah. And I wrote this in my notes that Drew, our old buddy Drucifer, has decided to bring an album and this particular artist to this podcast. And while it's maybe a bit dramatic, I am in the headspace currently of what I can only describe as Warsaw, Poland, September 1939.
So with that in mind, David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I'm legitimately terrified. My thoughts were, this is an artist and performer for as huge as I know she is. I know next to nothing about and have heard almost nothing. She's just never come close to anything that might catch my interest or catch my eye. I know she's a megastar. I know that. She's just never come into my field of vision at all.
Yeah, I didn't know quite what to expect. There's a lot of presumptions when it comes to Taylor Swift about her sound, about her approach to music, and about her persona, that kind of could lead you to a lot of particular ways she is the hero to the hero to white women everywhere.
Christ's sake, Petey.
I'm just being honest. And many others as well, not just white women, but but many others as well. She is her persona is almost larger than life, despite being kind of such a despite her gimmick being such a down to earth style. If we're being honest. She is she has a lot. She has a reputation that precedes her, and it's hard to like nail down what to expect when you're coming in like blind to something this massive. But I certainly had some assumptions about it musically, and we'll get to what that ended up being. But it certainly was something that was going to be interesting to me, to say the least. True. How would you describe this album musically?
And why did you do this to us?
Because I actually like this record. But I always wrote pop music at large, and especially Taylor Swift, kind of off. We reviewed art pop some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird to say some years ago, because it feels like not that long ago. But we reviewed art pop by Lady Gaga some time ago. And it made me realize, like, okay, maybe there's some modern pop music out there that's not so bad, but I never really gave it a second thought. This record I had to hear a lot because when it dropped, Amber and Harper both very much enjoyed multiple tracks from this record, so I heard it a bunch. And as I started to listen, something about it clicked. The lyrics themselves remind me a lot of stuff that I would have listened to when I was a teenager, when I was young. Like the weird, self-doubt emo music that I was super into. Your Get Up Kids, Your Saves the Day. That's a lot of the lyric content here, and apparently was part of the theme for this record. There we go. Which was sleepless nights spent wondering about oneself, right? Was the idea that she went into this record doing. The hooks are easy to digest. It's not overly complicated. There's a lot of four on the floor sort of beats, and everything else sort of plays around that. To a lot of the tracks, there's a dreamy sort of, and I've used this phrase before, but it is the best I can come up with for the feeling. It's that hypnagogic point between you're awake, you're partially asleep. It's that, and because of the record, it makes sense that it would feel like that sort of weirdness. Mm-hmm. What I didn't expect, and what actually made me go back and listen to other stuff she has done before, namely, there was a dual, Evermore and Folklore, were two albums that when I started getting this one, sort of seemed like they had the same sort of ideas behind them of piecing an album together as an entire thought. And they did have this as well, but I wasn't expecting subtlety. Usually with pop music, you get bombast and you get points and you get big things. There was theremin on a track. There was all this smart use of synthesizers and really well pieced together things. And there was a lot of that subtlety, which, again, you get it some in pop music, but not a lot, and not at this scale. It's something that was soothing, but at times was a toe tapping sort of bob around sort of record. It's a really smart record, and it doesn't feel like a pop record built by committee, which I sometimes with pop music I work, especially big pop music. When I say pop music in this essence, different from last where we discussed pop music as in the big, huge radio play sort of stuff. You always feel like when you listen to the record as a whole, it was a record built by committee. You have like, okay, here's the 2 singles, and here's a ballad, and this, that, and the other thing. But this felt like it had a vision, and it feels like it executed it well.
David, how would you describe this album musically?
The genre is dream pop, I believe, is the predominant vibe of this. In some ways, it reminds me of an album I brought onto the podcast many, many moons ago by Kitty. Miami Garden Club, I believe that's what it was called. Kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the stuff on that. And I didn't really know what I expected, to be honest, but I got something that had a lot of little elements of some great, great ideas. But as always, my main issue with pop music in general is that those ideas never stay around long enough. And there was a little bit of that on this album, but also at the same time, I think the songs that really hit are concise and to the point, and they hit every note that they need to really well.
Yeah, this is in a position of being a very, very like odd position where it's in the middle of her releasing the Taylor's versions of other albums. It was like people were anticipating the next Taylor's version. I think the one that came after this is she released Speak Now.
All right, guys, let's just throw it out there.
Yeah.
While listening to this album, how much lore digging did you do on Taylor Swift?
I didn't do as much. So there's a lot of lore.
Define lore.
There's
interpret it as you see fit.
Yeah. I went into it and just focused on listening to this album and the milieu of this album in and of itself. But it's still in an interesting position of like in the middle of like these like re-recordings, a brand new record. Musically, what caught my attention was that I didn't expect it to be this dream poppy, this synth poppy. I don't know. I think obviously it's just because the assumption with Taylor Swift is the like country folksy stuff, and then obviously that's a very, very dated assumption.
Some would say that was a different era.
Exactly. So it was a very
like I said, album. We're lore diving.
Yes. It's a much different time. It's very synth poppy, very dream poppy, very intense, very like heady in the sense of like being like deep diving into like just internal thoughts. It's like an intense, like a lot of anthemic moments, very, very emotional, more cussing than I expected,
Oh my God, one of my notes is if you would have told me during her first 2 records that Taylor Swift would eventually have a song called Vigilante Shit, I would have called you insane.
Now, see, when I was looking these up on YouTube, I saw that there was a clean version.
Yeah.
And then my first thought was, fuck the clean version. And I guess Taylor agrees with me to a certain extent.
Yeah. And I have to say that there was a weird hesitation for me to like finally start playing this, and I don't.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know exactly what. I don't know what it was like. What was keeping me from wanting to like get in there. It's a because it's such a big endeavor to like. I'm gonna start listening to Taylor Swift. It's like
And
it's,
you feel like you're walking on a lake of ice.
and
And you're trying your best to stay up on the ice, but the next thing you know, you're gonna fall through the ice, and you're swimming, and there are sharks that are going to eat you alive. That's what this feels like.
it's like getting into One Piece. You know, it's just you don't know where to
Yeah.
start, and then
Yeah.
like
No matter where you start, somebody's going to be slightly angry with you
yeah,
because you did it wrong.
yeah. But there was that hesitation, but there's a it is because it's supposed to be like it's a concept album with the like general themes of like, you know, self-hate, you know, self-hatred, you know, sleepless nights, like reflecting on yourself, like and that carries over in a lot of the tracks, but it's a journey, it's an adventure, and it was something to behold. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, let's get into some of the key tracks. Let's drill down into the key moments and tracks. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
To answer an earlier question, about this album as a whole, I did not lore dive, and I am not one to super lore dive on which song is about which X sort of thing. The only one I kind of do that with is vigilante shit, and I'll cover that when I get to it.
Yeah.
I had no context for any of this until I started lore diving.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, if I could put a piece of lore out there on my own, and I've been saying this for a while, using Lavender Haze being the opening track, one to me is like really gets you in that like smoky sort of weird dreamy headspace that most of this album plays in. There's a couple of times, namely Bejeweled, that like step out of that, but this gets you into that headspace really well. A thumping like 4/4 quarter note heartbeat kick that just rings in your ear works really well. Also, I'm going to say it, and I've been saying it since I've heard this song. I have my suspicions of why she used the color lavender.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all I'll say, because she can do with that color what she wants.
Yeah.
But she is not
Step
blind.
carefully, Mr. Drucifer.
She is not blind to certain communities. She is very aware of them and has went to bat for them before. So I can't say that she doesn't know what lavender means to those communities. Antihero. It was the lead single for a reason. There's the good sing-along-y call-out that if you look up videos of this live, the hi, it's me part, everyone's automatically singing along if they weren't before. It is catchy as all get out. The self-doubt motive and that feed in and the whole idea of this record, I think works really, really well. And something I think we've all felt a little bit like sort of looking at yourself as the problem. You're on Your Own, Kid feels like she's pulling from an older bag of tricks. We mentioned The Country before. But like she's like I was telling PD before we got started, she's the lead writing credit, so pulling from an old bag of tricks makes sense. Vigilante shit, a song that sounds like you're planning a murder that could be about a couple of different people.
Yeah.
namely the dude that stole her original works and a dude who jumped on stage and stole her spotlight for a moment.
Yeah.
Could be about either one. Who knows?
Learning a lot. I'm
yeah.
learning a lot.
Um,
How do you know all of this?
So I was a Kanye fan, so until he went full conspiracy theory QAnon.
Yeah.
So I was versed on the weird ins and outs of the Kanye Taylor Swift thing. And her mix up with the Taylor's versions and all that. When I started seeing those come out, I looked that up just because, like, I was like, what the fuck is why is she doing all this extra work? And then I saw it and I was like, oh, that's actually fucking cool. Like, respect. Like, it's kind of the punk rock guy in me kind of is like, oh yeah, no, that's figure out how to make it work. And your fans like you enough that they'll just fix it. They'll just focus on the ones you want them to focus on. And that the vigilante shit being about either one, just the lyrics themselves at times seems like it's one and times it seems like the other. So that's just me being like, I know both of these stories and then I listen to the lyrics and I'm like, well. Karma, but to end, my thoughts on the songs. Karma, for my money, is the catchiest song on the record. The sort of twinkly, bright sound of it going towards the end. If you're saying like, oh, these are nights, having that as like sort of one of the wake-up calls, and sort of one of the happier points of the record, like between that and Mastermind, it's something where those songs to me are something where it's like the more positive end of the, oh, I had the good day, and having it be that twinkly bright thing, I think works really well.
David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Drew, you literally named every track I was going to mention.
Hey.
Anti-hero, You're on Your Own, Kid, Vigilante Shit, Karma.
Yep.
PD?
Yes. I would say, we not to reiterate on too much. Like Drew said, Antihero is that anthem. It's the hit track. I mean, every track on here is like a song. I mean,
will
literally
say,
every song has
I will say about
Wikipedia
Antihero,
article.
I had only heard it on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then when I heard the whole song, it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it fit in there well. And it's a single for a reason. But I want to point out the ones that I want to point out. Vigilante Shit for being Taylor Swift's baddie mode anthem. This is I'm gonna call it. I put it in my notes. I call it Before He Cheats core. This is the sound not exactly, but like thematically, it's very like dig my key into the side of his pretty little souped up four-wheel ride. But more artistic.
Okay.
But it works, but it works well. And also, Karma, kind of like for going back to more familiar Taylor Swift like sound, that was a little bit more familiar, and that was a little bit more of what I expected. And it was an interesting kind of like inclusion in there. Let's bring it back around. David, once again, what would be your conclusion at the end of the day on this album?
I came into this completely completely blind. I was not aware that this was going to be a mostly dream pop album, which is by no means a diss. Please don't come after me. Please don't come after me. I'm just pointing out that I was completely clueless. Everything on here is well written, well constructed, and fun, with personal lyrics to an uncomfortable level. I feel like Taylor Swift is stuck in a reality show, and it's a little unsettling to see how much of her personal life is just out there for the world to see.
Yeah.
But I guess when you are as ultra famous as that, you can only speak your truth. So I wish her well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say that this has converted me into a believer, but this is by no means a bad album. I was fine with it. It was fine. And I wish Taylor Swift and the Swifties nothing but the best.
Yeah, it is. At the end of the day, it is a solid album. It is a triple A pop album. It is that like big league pop album, and it shows, even as it being personal, very emotional. It is epic and anthemic in that way. It is that like it's very like laying your self bare for somebody that is like so already exposed. Like she is caught in this like reality show. It's the perils of being ultra famous, and you wish it wasn't like that, but it is. They don't think it'd be like it is, but it do.
Ask Britney Spears in the last 8 to 10 years of her life.
So with a kind of like celebrity culture and idol culture, she is mastered. She has benefited, mastered, and also has been subject to her success as in kind of like locking into that parasocial relationship. Like one of the things that we haven't talked about is that she is the American parasocial pop princess. Like she is
boy, howdy is she.
She has mastered that K-pop-esque like fandom affiliation. She
that is not unlike the Blitzkrieg.
Yeah. She's kind of like locked into that. I mean, it's very reflective. Like she does like little things that is very K-pop like. Like she has like special editions of album.
What are we doing? We're a bunch of dudes in our 30s talking about Taylor Swift. What the fuck are we doing, Drew? Why did you do this?
So I did this randomly, because a while back I didn't do it recently, but just as like a little like visual aid. Have you seen like my K-pop albums?
Lover. The record.
I wish I had Midnights, because I could have probably gone to Target and grabbed Midnights, but I have Lover because I grabbed it because I was very intrigued by how very K-pop it was in it being like a photo book with like I think there was even photo cards in here, and like
you've been holding out on us.
And
I wouldn't even call myself a Swiftie. I don't even know anything like that. What the fuck?
You know, but like it's very similar in like in like setup of he's like it's one of several versions. There's like this is two of
It's
four.
propaganda.
But like,
It's meant to be collected.
well, that's the thing. And she
And
feeds
bulk
into
bought.
that, right? Like there was I remember seeing somewhere that like, I forget which album it was. I think it was like her third or the fourth. So she had already gotten pretty big, and like
Yeah.
she was getting like the fan club treatment like any pop idol would get, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And she found like the like personal emails of like a bunch of the people that were like putting that stuff together, and also like other people like on that forum, and like message them privately like, hey, I want you guys to listen to my new record first, and like brought like 75 of her fans to like her house to just hang out and listen to the record and like talk about it, and like so they could give her their thoughts on it and stuff like that, like in like a little private setting. Like it was like she just had like a little dinner party, house party where she just hung out with people. It was weird.
It started early with
So
like
much
creating
Taylor Swift lore. Oh my god.
And it, you know, she kind of established that like that close relationship with the fandom that that holds over to this day and is a fascinating aspect.
Hyperfixation of millions.
Exactly. And it's fascinating to see it on the scale that it is now. But you know what? She is all your besties. It's okay. You know, she loves you too. Drew, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
Like I said, it's one of those albums to me that like, if it wasn't for Amber and Harper, I would not have really given this album a second glance. Taylor Swift was not on my radar, was never on my radar. I was glad she was doing the things she was doing with like re-recording her albums and like really sticking up for like artist rights and like the writers and stuff having like more of a say, and like her being a like, again, we saw what happened with Dixie Chicks in the 90s being like vocal in pop and country music, and what happened to them for years. So like for her to be like, say, hey, I, as a very popular white woman, maybe I should throw my weight towards LGBT folks in a loud way, I think is something to be commended, and still gets her hate from members of my family. But
Yeah.
But it's a record that,
Have they
like,
called her satanic yet? Out in the ether?
no, no, but they are of the mindset of, how can she be singing about all her exes and putting that stuff on blast? And I'm like, have you listened to music?
Yeah.
That's most music.
It's like people getting pissed off at Green Day for being political.
Yeah, fucking idiots.
But I digress.
The thing is, I am listening to a lot of music in a different light lately, because of necessity. There's a small child who happens to be female through the wall, and some things about a different artist that I may or may not bring on later that I still enjoy her music. Maybe I don't feel great about how she treated some of her dancers on tour.
Yeah.
I won't say who, but I think we all know who.
Yeah.
But having people that maybe have a good message and are female and do really well thought out, well put together, well written music that says something not only about themselves but can speak to people. Like I said about Lady Gaga, it's that's what I got out of punk rock and emo music when I was a kid, was somebody saying the words that I felt in a way that made sense to me. And yeah, a lot of this stuff is like Taylor wearing her heart on her sleeve, but she's saying things that a lot of people feel and maybe don't have the words to put to it. And I think for that, it's commendable. Like I said, she fucking has the main writing credit on like all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which for pop music at this scale feels weird to me. Feels very foreign. I come from the era of Britney Spears and the Backstreet Boys where nobody was writing their own shit at all.
Yeah.
So all is very strange.
Yeah. There's not to double back. There's valid criticisms on her public persona, and there's the great TikTok where they point out like Taylor Swift uses feminism as a way to tell people not to be mad at her rather than what its intended purpose is. And that's that has been a fair criticism. Also, she uses her private jet a lot.
Yes.
But you know what? Maybe she'll help the Chiefs win, and that's good for at least Kansas City. So you know what? So
If I had a private jet, I would use it.
Yeah. I would want like an electric one if they can make like an event one.
Somebody said that, like, her taking a jet to see Travis Kelce feels like the most normal people shit coming out of Taylor Swift, because it's like, oh, she just took the quickest way to see her boyfriend. Like, I would also take the quickest way to see Amber if I wanted to go see Amber after I worked. Like, whatever. And then we didn't see her for days because she was probably just at his house, just chilling in sweats or some shit. Like, fucking whatever, man.
Watching Gilmore Girls or something.
I still gotta get you that goddamn keychain. It's in my car.
That being said, let's
get down to the nitty gritty.
Let's get to the main event. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. We get our haiku reviews. Haiku numero uno. Let's get it started. David, what is your haiku?
This is weird. In the words of Adam Pearce, I need a drink. My first with Taylor. It's a Dream Pop blog entry. Not bad. Moving on.
My haiku. A personal tale. Taylor's version from the start. So fuck Scooter Braun. And Drew, last but not least, what is your haiku?
Big for a reason. Smart, well planned out record. And she wrote it all.
She wrote it, all of it. Good stuff. Those are our thoughts on Midnights. Those are our thoughts on Taylor Swift's Midnights. You can of course find it on our Spotify playlist. If you haven't already heard it, you can find it a billion different places. But if you happen to haven't heard it yet, you can do that. But on our Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and I believe Drew, you have someone that we're inviting, not to presume, but we did like pencil things in on Discord.
Yes. He says he should be able to make it.
Yes.
And knowing him, he's also trying to get his own podcast off the ground and get it to as many ear holes as possible. Funny dude, a dude I've mentioned quite a few times. Whenever we do prog rock records, I usually drop the name Jason, the dude with what the Coheed tattoos and all. He decided, I asked him if he wanted to come on to be fourth in the initiative order and throw up a record for us. He has worked in studios and stuff. He is a big music fan, so yeah, he was up for the challenge, as it were. He's going to do an album called Suburban Legend by a band called Dury that I had never heard of before. Apparently a pop punk stuff. So we'll see how that works out.
We'll look forward to that. Dive into a completely different sound, which is gonna be awesome. But yeah, that'll be then. And this is now as I like choose now to start putting links into things. That is then, this is now, and you can of course find us all over the internet. Recordbreakers.fun is the website. Also recordbreakers.gay if you want. Rebelli.net for this and all of our other shows. You can find on there the show notes and all the links, including the links to the Spotify playlist, both the home game version and the full playlist. The full playlist being with all the episodes slotted in, at least the last 300 or so. We've actually doing a lot of episodes of the show. But yeah, you can have them slot in so you can just like listen seamlessly. And if you listen to it right now, you would just listen to the first song of the next album we're talking about. But yeah, until then, until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo. This is on your hands, Drew.
What? We didn't say anything bad. Everybody had a good time.
If anyone needs me, I fell into the demotion zone, so I gotta do only.
Our blood is on your hands.
아이가 아침부터 밤까지 놉니다.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.